"Do not open that folder, officer. Your name is inside." The words stopped Officer Grant Mercer with one hand resting on the red security seal of the federal case file. Judge Naomi Bennett stood beneath the white security lights behind the United States courthouse, her wrists secured behind her, her dark blue coat still buttoned against the evening cold. At her feet sat a locked document case and two thick folders marked for restricted judicial handling. The courthouse service entrance was less than 20 feet away. Through the glass door, a young woman in professional clothing pressed her identification card against the window and tried to get Mercer's attention. He ignored her. Mercer looked down at the folder again, then back at Naomi. "Are you threatening a police officer? I am warning you not to compromise sealed federal material." His body camera showed Naomi standing still, speaking clearly, and making no attempt to approach the documents. It also showed 3 security cameras above the entrance, a federal access panel beside the door, and the official transfer receipt lying on top of the locked case. Every answer Mercer needed was visible within a few steps. He had chosen not to look at any of them. "You expect me to believe your name is connected to this case?" he asked. "I said your name appears in the file. I did not say why." "Convenient." Mercer lifted his shoulder microphone. "Dispatch. I have one detained female behind the federal courthouse in possession of restricted court records. Possible theft and attempted interference with evidence." Naomi turned her face slightly toward his body camera. "For the record, I have provided my full name, my office number, the telephone number for the United States Marshals Service Desk, and the name of the clerk who transferred these files to me. Officer Mercer has not contacted any of them." Mercer lowered the radio. "Stop narrating. I am preserving an accurate account. You are trying to control the investigation. No, I am asking you to conduct one." Behind the glass, Emma Ruiz raised her court identification again and pointed toward Naomi, but Mercer stepped between them. "Back away from the door," he ordered. Emma did not open it. Instead, she reached for her telephone. Naomi noticed the movement and remained calm. Mercer crouched beside the document case. "What is the access code?" "You are not authorized to open it. That is not your decision. The sealing order makes it my responsibility." He gave a short, humorless laugh. "You do not get to tell me what a federal order means." Naomi met his eyes. "Actually, officer, I signed it." For the first time, Mercer hesitated. The pause lasted less than a second, but it was long enough for doubt to appear. Then pride covered it. "Now you are claiming to be a judge? I have been telling you how to verify my identity since you stopped me." Mercer stood and looked toward the service entrance as though the building itself had joined an argument against him. A real judge would have security. A real officer would have made one telephone call. The red seal remained unbroken beneath the security light. Mercer reached toward it again, determined to find something that would justify the decision he had already made. Naomi's voice became quieter. "If you open that folder, you may damage an active federal proceeding. Your body camera is recording that warning." His hand stopped over the seal. In the distance, headlights turned into the service lane. A dark vehicle bearing the insignia of the United States Marshals Service approached without a siren, its emergency lights reflecting across the courthouse windows. Mercer looked toward it, then back at Naomi. "Did you call them?" "No," she said. "The person behind that door did, after you refused every lawful way to learn who I am." The vehicle stopped several yards away. A deputy marshal stepped out, took one look at the woman standing in handcuffs, and froze. His expression changed from confusion to disbelief. "Judge Bennett," he said, moving toward them. "What happened here?" Mercer's face lost its certainty. Naomi did not look at him. She looked directly into the body camera and said, "Now preserve everything." 45 minutes earlier, Naomi Bennett stood in a private conference room on the 3rd floor of the federal courthouse annex, while the final pages of an emergency hearing were placed into 2 red-sealed folders. The proceeding had lasted nearly 4 hours and involved allegations that a private security contractor had manipulated municipal contracts, hidden payments, and falsified records connected to public buildings across the district. Naomi had listened without interruption, asked precise questions, and issued a temporary sealing order to protect witness identities while investigators verified the evidence. When the hearing ended, she removed her black judicial robe and handed it to Emma Ruiz, her law clerk, who folded it carefully over one arm. Beneath it, Naomi wore a dark blue coat over a charcoal dress, professional but ordinary enough that no stranger outside the courtroom would have guessed her position. "The main courthouse archive closes in 50 minutes, Emma said. Deputy Marshal Reed offered to send someone with us. Naomi looked at the two folders and the locked document case resting on the table. "The annex and the main building are less than 400 feet apart. We have a signed transfer record, secured access, and cameras covering the entire route." Daniel Price, a deputy clerk assigned to sealed matters, entered with a digital tablet and a printed custody form. He verified the file numbers, checked the condition of each seal, and recorded the identification code on the document case. Naomi read every line before signing. "The restricted exhibits are in the locked case," Daniel said. The red folders contain the court order, witness index, and contractor payment appendix. The appendix has not been fully reviewed. Naomi glanced at the top folder. "Then no one breaks the seal until the next authorized session." Daniel nodded and added his signature beneath hers. Emma slipped the custody receipt into a clear sleeve on top of the case. "I will go ahead and open the employee entrance," she said. "The access reader has been unreliable since Monday." Naomi lifted one folder under each arm and took the handle of the case. "Do not hold the door open. Use your card, let it close, and open it again when I arrive." Emma smiled. "You say that like someone who has spent years reading security policies." "I say it like someone who has spent years watching people ignore them." They left the conference room together and crossed the quiet annex hallway. Court staff were shutting down computers, attorneys were speaking in low voices near the elevators, and cleaning crews were beginning their evening rounds. No one stopped Naomi. Several employees greeted her respectfully, but none used her title within hearing distance of the public lobby. She preferred it that way outside the courtroom. Authority, in her view, was supposed to become quieter when it was not needed. At the rear exit, Emma moved ahead toward the main courthouse while Naomi paused so Daniel could scan the case through the annex security gate. The guard checked the receipt, matched the seal numbers, and waved her through. Outside, the air was cold and dry. The main building rose across the service lane, its stone walls glowing beneath white security lights. Emma reached the employee entrance first and used her identification card. Naomi followed at a steady pace, carrying the documents close to her body. She was less than 30 feet from the door when a patrol car turned into the service lane. Officer Grant Mercer had been assigned to traffic control several blocks away, but he slowed when he saw a black woman in ordinary clothing carrying sealed federal files after business hours. He did not look toward the annex guard who had just cleared her. He did not check the employee entrance where Emma waited. He did not ask the courthouse security officer standing near the corner whether the transfer was authorized. Instead, he stopped the patrol car, stepped out, and placed one hand near his radio. "Ma'am," he called. Naomi stopped immediately. Mercer looked at the red seals, the locked case, and the employee door behind her. His first question was not whether she needed assistance. "Who gave you permission to take those files?" Naomi held the case still at her side. "The clerk's office transferred them to me under a sealed judicial order. The signed custody form is on top of the case." Mercer approached without looking at the receipt. "Set everything down." Naomi studied his expression and understood that he had already chosen the story he expected to hear. "Officer, before I place sealed material on the pavement, contact the United States Marshals Service desk inside this building. They will verify my identity and the transfer." Mercer's eyes narrowed. "That sounds rehearsed." Naomi looked toward Emma behind the glass door. "It sounds precise because the truth usually is." Mercer stopped 6 feet from Naomi and looked past her toward the employee entrance, where Emma Ruiz stood behind the glass with her court identification raised in one hand. The signed custody form remained clearly visible on top of the locked case, but he did not bend down to read it. "Place the folders and the case on the ground," he said. Naomi kept her voice steady. "These materials are sealed. I will set them on the concrete only if you confirm that no unauthorized person will handle them." Mercer's expression hardened. "You are not in a position to give conditions." Naomi lowered the locked case carefully, keeping both red folders against her coat. "My identification is in my handbag. It is hanging from my left shoulder. May I retrieve it?" "Do not reach into the bag. Then you will need to remove the identification yourself or contact the Marshals Service desk." Mercer stared at her as if the request itself proved dishonesty. "What is your name?" "Naomi Bennett." "Where do you work?" In this courthouse complex. Doing what? Naomi looked toward his body camera. My position can be verified by the United States Marshals Service, the clerk's office, or the security officer at the annex entrance who watched me leave. Mercer glanced toward the annex, less than 400 feet behind her, but made no attempt to contact anyone there. People who belong in this building usually carry identification where they can show it. I have identification. You instructed me not to reach for it. Emma pressed the intercom button beside the glass door. Her voice came through the exterior speaker. Officer, my name is Emma Ruiz. I am a federal court employee. Ms. Bennett is authorized to carry those files. I can verify her identity. Mercer turned sharply toward the entrance. Stay inside and step away from the door. Emma held her identification against the glass. You can scan my card or contact courthouse security. Do not interfere with an active investigation. Naomi watched him refuse the fourth available path to verification. The receipt. The annex guard. The marshal's desk. Emma's identification. Each answer was within sight. Yet Mercer kept searching for a reason not to accept any of them. Officer, Naomi said, what specific offense are you investigating? Possible theft of government property. What fact supports that suspicion? You are carrying restricted court files outside the building after hours. The annex is still open. The main courthouse archive is still accepting transfers. The custody form records the destination and time. Mercer looked at the clear sleeve without reading it. Anyone could print a form. Then call the clerk whose name appears at the bottom. Stop telling me how to do my job. I am telling you how to verify the facts. Mercer moved closer to the folders. Set those down. Naomi placed them gently on top of the locked case, keeping the red seals facing upward. Do not break the seals. The documents are protected by a judicial order. If they are stolen, they are evidence. If you open them without authorization, you may compromise a federal proceeding. Mercer lifted his radio. Dispatch, begin an identity check on Naomi Bennett. Possible unauthorized possession of federal court records. Naomi gave her date of birth when requested. Dispatch returned no warrants, no alerts, and no criminal history. Mercer did not end the encounter. The system only tells me you are not wanted, he said. It does not prove you belong here. Naomi's eyes remained calm, but her voice became firmer. Belonging is not a criminal standard. The sentence entered his body camera clearly. Mercer changed direction. How did you access the restricted area? Through the annex security gate, after the guard checked the transfer record. So now there is a guard who can support your story? There has been one from the beginning. He walked around the document case without touching it. Your explanation is too detailed. Accuracy often sounds detailed to someone who has already decided it is false. Behind the glass, Emma quietly called Deputy United States Marshal Thomas Reed. Mercer noticed her telephone and pointed toward the door. Tell her to stop recording. Naomi did not turn around. She is preserving what you have chosen not to verify. Mercer's jaw tightened. Turn around and place your hands where I can see them. Naomi complied slowly. Am I being detained? You are not free to leave. On what stated basis? Suspicion of theft, unauthorized access, and refusal to cooperate. Naomi looked directly at the body camera one final time. I have provided my name, date of birth, office location, transfer receipt, 3 verification contacts, and access to multiple witnesses. Please record that cooperation did not fail here. Verification did. Naomi remained facing the courthouse wall with her hands visible at her sides, while Mercer stood behind her, one hand near his radio and the other hovering above the sealed folders. The white security lights cast long shadows across the service lane, and the locked document case rested less than 3 feet from his boots. Emma Ruiz watched through the glass entrance. Her telephone pressed to her ear as she spoke quietly with Deputy United States Marshal Thomas Reed. Mercer noticed her again and raised his voice. Step away from the door. Emma remained inside the secured building. Officer, I am not entering your scene. I am offering to verify the identity of the person you detained. I told you not to interfere. You can contact the Marshals Service desk. They are expecting these documents. Mercer turned toward Naomi. Tell her to stop. She works for the court, Naomi said. You may address her directly. You seem very comfortable giving instructions. I am comfortable stating facts. Mercer crouched near the clear sleeve containing the transfer receipt. He looked at the signatures, but did not call either person named on the form. This document could have been prepared by anyone. The clerk's office can authenticate it within minutes. Or you could open the case and show me what you were carrying. Naomi turned her head slightly, careful not to move her hands. The contents are sealed. I do not consent to opening the case, and you do not have authorization to review those materials. Refusing inspection makes your story less believable. Protecting restricted court records is not evidence of theft. Mercer stood. People with nothing to hide usually cooperate. I have cooperated with every lawful request connected to identifying me. I will not violate a sealing order to satisfy a suspicion you have not verified. The courthouse security camera above them rotated slightly as it followed the scene. Emma pointed toward it through the glass. Officer, that camera recorded her arrival from the annex. Security can confirm the route. Mercer did not look up. I am not discussing this with you. Naomi spoke calmly. That is the 5th verification source you have refused. Mercer stepped closer. Stop keeping count. The body camera is keeping count. His expression tightened. You are being detained because your behavior is inconsistent with someone authorized to possess federal records. My behavior has been to preserve the chain of custody, identify myself, provide witnesses, and request verification. Your behavior has been argumentative. Disagreement is not obstruction. Mercer lifted his radio and requested an additional local unit, describing Naomi as increasingly uncooperative. She waited until the transmission ended. I am requesting your supervisor. There is no reason to call one. There is a disputed detention involving sealed federal material at a federal courthouse. There are several reasons. Mercer looked toward the employee door. Emma had ended her call and now held her identification against the glass again. A green access light glowed beside the entrance, confirming that her card was valid. She can open the door and confirm the transfer without touching the files, Naomi said. No one opens that door. Then contact the annex guard. I will decide what is relevant. You decided what was relevant before you asked the first question. For a moment, the only sounds were the low engine of Mercer's patrol car and the hum of the courthouse ventilation system. Then Mercer reached for Naomi's handbag. Where is the identification? Inside the front compartment. You have my permission to retrieve the identification card only. He opened the compartment and found a leather credential holder, but instead of examining it immediately, he placed the entire bag on the hood of his patrol car. What agency issued it? He asked. Read it. Mercer looked at the closed holder, then back at her. You answer the questions. The answer is inside your hand. He did not open it. Accepting the identification would have ended the story he had built, and he was no longer investigating whether Naomi belonged there. He was defending the decision to believe that she did not. He returned to the locked case and examined the combination panel. Give me the access code. No. That refusal will be documented. So will your attempt to open sealed material after being offered 5 lawful methods of verification. Mercer stood and reached for his handcuffs. Emma pressed both palms against the glass. Far down the service lane, headlights appeared and began moving toward the courthouse. Naomi saw them reflected in the door, but kept her eyes on Mercer's body camera. Before you take another step, she said, state clearly why available verification is not enough. Mercer pulled the handcuffs free. Because I do not believe you. Naomi's voice remained quiet. That is not evidence. That is the problem. Mercer held the handcuffs where his body camera could see them and ordered Naomi to place both hands behind her back. She complied without resistance, moving slowly so there could be no claim that she had startled him or ignored an instruction. For the record, she said, I am cooperating with the detention. I am not consenting to any search of the sealed files or the locked document case. Mercer secured the handcuffs and stepped back. You are being detained for obstruction and suspected possession of stolen government property. Naomi kept her posture straight. State the obstructive act. You refuse to open the case. I refuse to violate a federal sealing order. That distinction will be investigated. It should have been verified before you place me in handcuffs. Behind the glass, Emma Ruiz held her telephone near her face and recorded through the secured entrance. Mercer noticed her and pointed toward the building. Stop filming and move away from the door. Emma remained inside. I am documenting the condition of sealed court property and the detention of an authorized court official. Mercer turned back to Naomi. She keeps calling you an official, but neither of you has produced anything I can trust. Naomi looked toward the leather credential holder resting unopened on the hood of his patrol car. My identification is in your possession. Mercer ignored it and lifted his radio. Dispatch. Detained subject is refusing access to a locked case containing possible federal evidence. Requesting confirmation on a local supervisor and an available transport unit. Naomi spoke clearly toward his camera. Please record that the officer has not contacted the United States Marshals Service, the clerk's office, courthouse security, the annex guard, or either person named on the transfer receipt. Mercer lowered the radio. You do not control my report. No, the recording does. He walked toward the folders and read the printed case number on the top cover. Beneath it appeared the name of a private security contractor whose municipal contracts had recently drawn public attention. Mercer's expression changed. It was not recognition of Naomi. It was recognition of the investigation. He glanced toward the locked case, then toward the red seal. This is connected to the Halcyon security inquiry. Naomi did not answer the substance of the question. The proceeding is sealed. The news is already reported on the contractor. The public reporting does not authorize you to inspect restricted evidence. Mercer crouched and examined the seal more closely. What is in the appendix? You are not authorized to know. If you obtain these files illegally, I need to determine what was taken. You have been given several ways to determine whether the transfer was legal. Emma pressed the intercom again. Officer Mercer, Deputy United States Marshal Thomas Reed, is responding now. Do not open the folders. Mercer looked toward the approaching headlights, then returned his attention to the case. You called federal officers before I finished my investigation? I called courthouse security after you refused to verify her identity, Emma said. Mercer reached for the top folder. Naomi's voice became sharper, though it never became loud. Do not break that seal. He paused with his fingers above the red strip. You are in handcuffs because you kept giving orders. I am in handcuffs because you confused lawful responsibility with defiance. What are you trying to hide in here? Nothing. I am trying to protect material that a federal court ordered sealed. Mercer looked directly at her. And who exactly issued that order? Naomi held his gaze. I did. The answer created a brief silence. Mercer stood, but disbelief quickly returned to his face. Now you are claiming to be the judge assigned to this case. Open the credential holder you removed from my bag. A credential can be fabricated. Then call the marshal's service desk. Anyone inside that building could be covering for you. Naomi looked past him toward the dark vehicle entering the service lane. That is the problem with deciding the truth before checking it. Every witness begins to look like part of the lie. The vehicle stopped several yards away. Its official markings became visible beneath the security lights. Mercer still had not opened Naomi's identification. Instead, he leaned toward the folder again, as though the evidence inside might rescue him from the evidence already surrounding him. Naomi watched his hand move toward the seal. Do not open that folder, officer, she said. Your name is inside. The driver's door of the federal vehicle opened, and Deputy Marshal Thomas Reed stepped onto the pavement. Deputy United States Marshal Thomas Reed stepped from the federal vehicle and looked first at the sealed folders, then at the locked document case, and finally at Naomi standing in handcuffs beneath the courthouse lights. His expression changed instantly. Judge Bennett, are you injured? Mercer turned toward him. She is being detained during an active investigation. Naomi answered before Reed could move closer. I am not injured. Do not touch the files until the chain of custody is documented. Reed stopped exactly where he was. Understood. Mercer stared at Naomi, then at Reed. You know her. She is the federal judge assigned to this court. The words landed with a silence heavier than any accusation. Emma Ruiz remained behind the glass entrance, still recording. Mercer looked toward the unopened credential holder on the hood of his patrol car. She refused to identify herself properly. Naomi's voice stayed calm. My credential has been in your possession for several minutes. You chose not to open it. Reed glanced at the leather holder, but did not touch it. Officer, did you contact the marshal's service desk? I was still establishing the facts. Did you contact courthouse security? No, the clerk's office. No, the annex guard. No, Mercer straightened. I had a suspicious person carrying restricted records after hours. Reed looked toward the annex building less than 400 feet away. The annex is still operating. The transfer route is covered by federal cameras. The receipt is visible on top of the case. Mercer looked at Naomi. She became argumentative and refused to open the container. Because the container is sealed under court order, Reed said. Her order. Headlights appeared at the opposite end of the service lane. A local command vehicle arrived and stopped behind Mercer's patrol car. Sergeant Laura Chin stepped out with her body camera active and approached without rushing. Who requested a supervisor? She asked. Naomi answered. I did, before I was handcuffed. Mercer spoke quickly. Sergeant, I detained her for possible theft of federal documents, unauthorized access, and obstruction. Chin looked at Reed. Identity confirmed. Judge Naomi Bennett, United States District Court. Authorized custody of the materials. Chin turned to Mercer. What evidence supported theft? She was outside with sealed files. What evidence showed the files were stolen? Mercer gestured toward the folders. She refused to let me inspect them. Chin looked at the red seals. Were you told they were protected by a court order? She claimed that. Did you verify the claim? Mercer did not answer. Chin continued. Did dispatch return any warrants or alerts? No. Did she attempt to leave? No. Did she provide her name and date of birth? Yes. Did she offer verification contacts? Mercer's silence became its own answer. Naomi looked directly at Chin's body camera. I provided the marshal's desk, the clerk's office, courthouse security, the annex guard, the transfer receipt, the security cameras, and my credential. None were checked. Chin faced Mercer. Unlock the handcuffs. He hesitated. Sergeant, I believe continued detention is necessary until the files are reviewed. The files will not be reviewed by local patrol. Her identity and authority have been confirmed. Remove the handcuffs. Mercer complied. Naomi brought her hands forward slowly and adjusted the sleeves of her coat. She did not look triumphant. She looked tired, precise, and fully aware that the moment could easily have ended differently for someone without witnesses behind courthouse glass. Chun instructed Mercer to step away from the document case and surrender the credential holder without opening it. Reed photographed the condition of every seal while Emma exited the building and provided the original transfer record. Daniel Price arrived from the annex moments later with the electronic custody log. Every timestamp matched. Every signature matched. Every seal remained intact. Chun asked dispatch to preserve Mercer's body camera, radio traffic, location data, and incident notes. Mercer looked at Naomi. I made a judgment call based on the situation. Naomi met his eyes. A judgment call requires judgment. You refused evidence because it contradicted your assumption. Reed opened the employee entrance and prepared to escort the files inside. Before following him, Naomi turned to Chun. Do not investigate this because I am a judge. Investigate why every available fact was ignored before my title became known. Chun nodded. That will be the focus. Mercer stood beneath the courthouse lights as the sealed folders passed through the door he had refused to trust, carried by the woman he had refused to believe. Inside the secure records room, Deputy United States Marshal Thomas Reed placed the locked case on the examination table while Emma Ruiz and Daniel Price verified the seals against the custody log. Naomi stood several feet away, watching each number and signature being checked. The files had remained closed. The case had not been opened. Nothing appeared missing or damaged. Outside the room, Sergeant Laura Chun instructed Officer Grant Mercer to remain available for command review and prohibited him from contacting Naomi, Emma, Daniel, or any courthouse employee involved in the incident. His body camera recording, radio traffic, location history, and preliminary notes were preserved before the end of the shift. Naomi did not ask what punishment he might face. Her first concern was the integrity of the proceeding he had nearly compromised. We need a complete inventory before the files return to chambers, she said. Daniel opened the first red folder under the authorized procedure while Reed recorded the condition of the seal. The contents matched the transfer index, the temporary sealing order, witness list, contractor correspondence, and financial exhibits submitted during the emergency hearing. The second folder contained an appendix that had arrived only minutes before the proceeding ended. Naomi had not reviewed every page. Emma began comparing the names against the digital index while Daniel read the exhibit numbers aloud. Halfway through the appendix, Emma stopped. Her eyes remained fixed on one page. Judge Bennett, she said carefully. You need to see this before we continue. Naomi approached but did not touch the document. The page listed municipal officers who had received privately funded overtime payments from Halcyon Security during public events at facilities covered by the company's contracts. Near the middle of the list appeared a familiar name, Grant Mercer. The entry showed multiple payments over 14 months, including several that had not appeared in the disclosure records provided to investigators. The room became silent. Reed looked toward Naomi. "That explains what you told him outside." Naomi shook her head. "No, I had not seen this page. I knew his name was somewhere in the appendix because the index included a Mercer entry, but I did not know whether it referred to him or what it involved." Emma looked troubled. "Now that he detained you, this creates a conflict. It creates the appearance of one, which is enough to require immediate action." Naomi stepped away from the table. "Stop the review. Seal the appendix again. Notify the chief judge and the clerk of court that I am recusing myself from every decision connected to Officer Mercer or these payments." Reed nodded. "Do you want the incident reported to the investigative team?" "Yes, through the standard evidence channel. Not through me." Daniel prepared a new custody entry documenting the discovery, the time, and Naomi's recusal. Emma asked, "What happens to the hearing?" "Another judge will take over the portion involving Mercer. The rest of the case can proceed after the chief judge determines whether my recusal should extend further." Naomi looked at the sealed folder. "No one will be able to say that I used this court to answer what happened outside." The following morning, Chief Judge Eleanor Walsh reassigned the Mercer-related materials to Judge Samuel Price from a neighboring district. An independent investigative team received the payment records without commentary from Naomi. The entries did not prove that Mercer had committed a crime. Officers were sometimes permitted to accept approved outside duty assignments. The question was whether the payments had been properly disclosed, whether Mercer had received preferential treatment, and whether his police authority had benefited the contractor. Those questions would be answered by records, not anger. Meanwhile, Captain Rachel Lawson of Professional Standards reviewed Mercer's body camera. The footage showed Naomi offering one verification method after another. It showed her credential resting unopened on the patrol car. It recorded Mercer stating that he did not believe her even after every available fact pointed toward confirmation. By noon, Mercer had been placed on administrative leave pending an independent review. When Emma told Naomi, she expected relief. Naomi only looked toward the courthouse window. "The most important evidence is not that his name appeared in my file," she said. "It is that he treated my identity as impossible before he knew my title." Mercer had believed the sealed folder might contain something that could save his judgment. Instead, it revealed why judgment had to be taken out of his hands. Over the next 6 weeks, Captain Rachel Lawson's review expanded far beyond one evening outside the courthouse. Investigators compared Mercer's body camera recordings, field reports, dispatch logs, pedestrian stops, and courthouse area contacts from the previous 2 years. At first, the incidents appeared unrelated. A public defender questioned near the parking garage. A courthouse interpreter stopped while carrying a staff badge. A black attorney asked to prove that she belonged inside a restricted hallway even after a clerk confirmed her appointment. A delivery driver detained beside a loading entrance while white contractors passed through without challenge. The reports used familiar words: suspicious, evasive, argumentative, uncooperative. The recordings showed something different. Most of the people had answered questions calmly. Several had offered identification before Mercer requested it. Others had pointed toward nearby witnesses or security desks that could confirm their purpose. Again and again, Mercer ignored the fastest path to verification and treated the need to verify as proof that the person did not belong. Maya Brooks, a 34-year-old black attorney, came forward after seeing a local report about Naomi's detention. For months earlier, Mercer had stopped her outside the same courthouse after an evening hearing and demanded to know why she was carrying a legal file box. Maya had shown him her bar identification and electronic court schedule, but he kept her there while he searched for a reason to distrust both. Her complaint had been closed because Mercer wrote that she had become hostile and refused to identify herself. Maya still had the video from her telephone. It showed her standing quietly beneath the parking lights, holding her identification where his camera could see it. It also captured Mercer telling another officer that people like her always had an explanation ready. The new evidence reopened her complaint and 3 others. Captain Lawson requested an outside civil rights review so the department would not judge its own pattern in isolation. Analysts compared Mercer's stops by race, location, time of day, stated reason, duration, and outcome. After accounting for traffic levels and courthouse activity, Black professionals and employees were still far more likely to be questioned, held longer, and described as uncooperative even when their records were valid. The halcyon security payments created a separate question. Financial investigators confirmed that Mercer had worked approved outside assignments for the contractor, but several payments had not been disclosed through the department's required reporting system. Messages showed that company supervisors sometimes contacted him directly to handle problems near properties covered by their contracts. The evidence did not prove that he had stopped Naomi to protect Halcyon. It did prove that he had failed to disclose a financial relationship connected to a federal investigation and had later attempted to open sealed material from that same case without authority. The independent judge handling the contract matter kept those findings separate from the disciplinary process, preserving both investigations from claims of retaliation. Mercer received notice of each allegation, access to the evidence, and an opportunity to respond through counsel. He argued that the encounters reflected officer safety and experience rather than bias. Captain Lawson compared that defense with the recordings. Experience should have made verification faster. Instead, Mercer repeatedly used uncertainty as permission to extend control. Sergeant Laura Chun gave a formal statement confirming that Naomi's identity, authority, and chain of custody could have been verified within minutes. Emma Ruiz provided her original video. Daniel Price authenticated the transfer records. Deputy Marshal Reed confirmed that Mercer never contacted the federal security desk. The body camera supplied the clearest record of all. Naomi had offered facts. Mercer had answered with disbelief. By the end of the 6th week, the case was no longer about a single officer making one poor decision. It was about a pattern hidden behind routine language and reports that had gone unchallenged because each person had been forced to stand alone. When Naomi read the preliminary findings, she did not focus on the number of complaints. She focused on how many people had been told that calm explanation was suspicious. The danger, she said, was never that he failed to recognize a judge. It was that he believed a Black woman needed a title before her truth deserved verification. 8 months later, Naomi Bennett entered the federal courthouse through the same employee entrance where Officer Grant Mercer had once refused every available fact. The white security lights were still there. The camera above the door still followed each person who crossed the service lane. What had changed was the procedure. A direct verification line now connected local officers with courthouse security, the clerk's office, and the United States Marshals Service. When a person provided verifiable court credentials, officers were required to check them before extending a detention. Requests for supervisors triggered automatic preservation of body camera footage, and every courthouse area stop received a documented review. The reforms had been written after months of testimony, audits, and public meetings, but Naomi understood that a policy was only as strong as the people willing to follow it. Mercer's disciplinary process had ended 3 weeks earlier. He had received notice of the allegations, reviewed the evidence, answered through counsel, and appeared before the department board. The findings did not say he had made one unfortunate mistake. They concluded that he had detained Naomi without sufficient grounds, described lawful conduct as obstruction, refused reasonable verification, attempted to access sealed federal material without authority, and submitted reports that conflicted with recorded evidence. The board also found that he had failed to disclose required financial connections to Halcyon Security. He was removed from the police department. His initial administrative appeal was denied. The federal contract investigation continued under Judge Samuel Price, entirely separate from Naomi. Investigators had not charged Mercer with stealing money or interfering with the court case. The records would decide what could be proved, and Naomi had kept her distance from every decision. That separation mattered to her. Justice could not become personal simply because injustice had been. Maya Brooks and 3 other Black professionals whose complaints had once been closed received formal notices that their cases had been reopened and sustained. Their records were corrected. The department removed false descriptions that had labeled calm questions as hostility and lawful identification as refusal. Captain Rachel Lawson established a review team to compare written reports with body camera recordings before complaints could disappear into routine language. Sergeant Laura Chin began training local officers alongside federal courthouse security. The lesson was simple. Uncertainty required verification, not assumption. On a cold morning in early spring, Naomi carried another sealed folder from the annex toward the main building. She wore the same dark blue coat, and Emma Ruiz walked several steps ahead to activate the employee entrance. A young patrol officer near the service lane noticed the red seal and approached. Naomi stopped. The officer maintained a respectful distance and said, "Good morning, ma'am. Courthouse security notified us that sealed documents would be transferred through this route. May I confirm the name on the custody record?" Naomi provided it. The officer contacted the verification desk, received confirmation within seconds, and stepped aside. "Thank you, Judge Bennett. The entrance is clear. No accusation. No demand to open the folder. No assumption that a black woman carrying the law must have taken it from someone else." Naomi entered the building and later spoke at a judicial ethics program attended by officers, attorneys, clerks, and community leaders. "The handcuffs came off when they learned my title," she said. "They should never have gone on after the facts were available. My position did not make me more truthful. It only made the failure to verify harder for the system to ignore." She looked across the room at Maya and the others whose names had once been buried in closed complaints. A fair institution cannot require a person to be powerful before it listens. The law must protect the unknown citizen with the same care it gives the recognized judge. That evening, Naomi returned her robe to chambers and placed the newly transferred folder inside the secure archive. The seal remained intact. Outside, officers moved through the courthouse district under rules shaped by what the old system had failed to see. Mercer had looked at a black woman carrying the authority of the court and assumed she had stolen it. In the end, it was his own record that stood before judgment.